and they do not hand over the dead bodies of these boys to their families. So there's an angry reaction, and people offer prayers in absentia, and also there are demonstrations over these killings. And when there are demonstrations, the Indian occupation forces use pellet firing shotguns, automatic weapons, many other ways of terrorizing people. Now, the number of these killings is increasing. Last month in May, 33 young men were killed. And let me show you that they are not terrorists. They call them militants. I mean, these Indian occupation forces and the police forces call them militants, but they say that the total number of these militants is 230 to 240. And they are pitted against 900,000 Indian occupation forces armed to the teeth. Now, one thing that I want to highlight, and it is not on the radar screen of the international community or the world parliaments, is the introduction of the new domicile rules in the occupied territory. Now, what are these new domicile rules? And they were also introduced in the dead of night, stealthily, taking the cover of the pandemic. So because the Indian occupiers knew that the world's attention was diverted towards COVID-19, so they used this window, this opportunity to introduce these rules. Now, these rules are designed to change the demography of the region for all times to come. These will have a permanent effect. What they're doing is that they would be importing Hindus from all over India and settle them in the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. And these people who would be brought over, they include civil servants, army officers, or civil servants who served in statutory bodies, or they have taught in educational institutions. They and their families would be settled in the occupied territory. This is in violation of a law that was there, which dates back to 1927, which recognized 4 basic rights, 4 fundamental rights of the Kashmiris. And these rights were: 1, permanent residence; 2nd, acquisition of property; 3rd, education; 4th, employment. All these rights have been taken away. And instead, these new people would be settled there, and most of them would be Hindus. There's a formula that whoever has served in India for 15 years or has appeared in the 10th and 12th class examinations or studied there for 7 years, they would qualify. They would qualify not only for settlement, but also for jobs. Also, migrants from all over India, migrant workers from all over India, from Rajasthan and from Maharashtra and Bihar and Bengal and Punjab and Delhi, they would be settled in Kashmir. And their numbers, more than 400,000. You have others too. For instance, I can tell you that there are refugees, Hindu refugees. They would give them this permanent resident status. Now, what they're doing is that they're fast tracking this settlement. I mean, to acquire these domicile certificates. Once an applicant has submitted his or her application, the officials, concerned officials, are required to process them in 15 days. And if a civil servant doesn't do that, he would be fined 50,000 Indian rupees. These are like Nuremberg laws, which were introduced by Hitler in 1935, last century. And their purpose was to take away German nationality and identity of the Jews. They were made second-rate citizens. Then they were deprived of their businesses. And they were asked not to do, for instance, medical practice, they were excluded from jobs. It's exactly what we see happening in the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. So what we see there is basically systematic disenfranchisement, dispossession, and displacement of Kashmiris. Now, there's another irony, I'll tell you, that these outsiders would be able to settle in the territory of Jammu and Kashmir. But if you belong to diaspora community, your child or even you yourself cannot go back to Kashmir and settle there, according to these laws that have been introduced. Second, the Kashmiris themselves in their own homeland will have to prove that they are domiciles of that territory. If they do not have a domicile certificate, they would not qualify for about 480,000 jobs. So what is happening, because they would have domicile certificates, others would come and grab those jobs. So what we see there is land grab and Kashmiris being deprived of their jobs and their businesses. And this would create stress, and these Kashmiris would be forced to migrate or probably forced to start armed resistance against these outrages. Now, what else is happening? I just want to highlight. One is that in order to divert attention from what India is doing in the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the crimes against humanity that it is committing, and genocide and war crimes and ethnic cleansing, in order to divert attention from these crimes, it has escalated the situation along the line of control, the ceasefire line between the two Kashmirs, between Pakistan and India. And in the recent past, they've already violated the line of control for 1,100 times or more than that. And that has resulted in casualties in Azad Kashmir. And they have destroyed the critical infrastructure of the households and neighborhoods along the line of control. There are some 80,000 households which are affected by Indian fire. India has been also threatening Pakistan with a war. They have openly threatened their cabinet ministers, their army commanders. They've said that they would attack Azad Kashmir, that they would attack Gilgit-Baltistan, and they would take back these areas militarily. They have also said that they would disintegrate Pakistan. And I'm not just cooking up these things. You can go to the social media portals or also to the newspapers, and it is their defense minister or their prime minister making such statements. We are apprehensive that India is also preparing for a false flag operation. An operation would not be real, but it would create a situation, and then they would find a justification for attacking Pakistan, Azad Kashmir or Gilgit-Baltistan. And another complication which has emerged in the recent past is the India-China standoff in Ladakh. And you know, Ladakh is contiguous. This territory is contiguous to the Jammu and Kashmir territory in Gilgit-Baltistan. This also stokes the flames of war, and it heightens tensions in the region. You all know about the discrimination, systematic discrimination against Indian Muslims, and therefore the war in Kashmir, or the struggle for freedom or self-determination in Kashmir, is fast turning into a civilizational war. In short, the situation is very incendiary, and the human rights violations right now in the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir are horrendous, unacceptable, unconscionable. Now, let me come to the operative part. I first want to thank British parliamentarians for their constant engagement. And I hope Debbie Abrams is there. She was in Azad Kashmir. Ms. Abrams, are you there? Can you raise your hand?
She's there.
Oh, hello. So it was so good to have you in Muzaffarabad, and your tour was very productive. So, and let me pay tribute to you for your leadership and your very effective stewardship on the issue of Jammu and Kashmir, because you head and lead this cross-party caucus within the British Parliament. And we are grateful for the efforts that you have made and the doors that you have opened within the House of Commons and the House of Lords, and within the diaspora community, I would say. So thank you so much for the endeavors that you have made for the realization of the right to self-determination of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. So my thanks to the British Parliament for constant engagement on the Jammu and Kashmir issue on cross-party basis. It is not a partisan issue. It is not an issue which is pursued by the Labour Party or the Conservative Party or SNP or Lib Dems. It is a British issue pursued by British parliamentarians. Now, the international response to the illegal steps that India took last year was very encouraging, whether it was the world parliaments or the media, the international media or human rights organizations. But you know, this groundswell of support for the Kashmiris, this tapered off because of a number of other developments. One was, of course, Brexit itself, elections in the United Kingdom, also COVID-19 now. There were developments in North America, particularly in the United States. So because of that, there's been diversion of attention, but still I'm grateful to the British parliamentarians who have been focusing on this issue. Let me tell you that these issues that I have enumerating, recent killings or the introduction of the discriminatory colonial domicile rules, on these there has been scant or inadequate response from the international community. Now, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation has condemned these measures. The Human Rights Commission has castigated India for what it has done. And the European Parliament has been active before COVID-19 and after. You would recall that in March this year, some 650 MAPs had tabled more than 6 resolutions calling out India for creating a crisis of statelessness in India itself, and appeal to India to implement the UN Security Council resolutions on Jammu and Kashmir. This was very encouraging. Those resolutions were not passed at the request of India because Narendra Modi was about to visit Brussels and they rescheduled them, but that they could not be scheduled again because of COVID-19. So I think day before yesterday, 15 MAPs have written a letter protesting against the atrocities in the Jammu and Kashmir territory. They have addressed this letter to the president of the European Commission and also to the High Representative. This is very encouraging and reassuring. The road ahead. You know, I recall that before the COVID-19 lockdown, the British Parliament had scheduled a debate. And I would request you, if you have not already renewed your request for that debate, I would request you to have that debate as early as possible, because Kashmir is literally burning right now and young men are losing their lives, and these domicile rules would change the very nature and composition of what we call the Jammu and Kashmir state. And it would be too late. I mean, if we take action, let's say next year or the year after, it would be too late because the imperialists, the irredentists would have annexed the territory through multiple means. Now, second is that during Prime Minister's question hour, despite all the limitations that we have during the lockdown, please raise this issue. And this would be very helpful for the Kashmiris. I would also say that it would be good for this group or this cross-party group or the all-party parliamentary Kashmir group to lobby with the FCO and with 10 Downing Street. I think that you can talk to or engage Dominic Raab and Prime Minister Boris Johnson. And last time when we had a webinar, Yasmin Qureshi, is she sitting here? Or has she not joined yet? But Yasmin Qureshi had made a proposal, and I'm repeating it. She said that there should be a cross-party meeting of all the political parties to build consensus on Kashmir. I mean, we have these statements, and these statements are really very encouraging and reassuring. But what if all the parties, they get together and develop consensus on their strategy on Kashmir, and they pursue it consistently? That would be very helpful. She also made another proposal that the front benchers, in fact, a caucus of front benchers from all political parties could engage Mr. Boris Johnson and Mr. Dominic Raab to brief them about the developments in the subcontinent, particularly in Jammu and Kashmir. So I leave these proposals on the table. I have also proposed repeatedly that a BDS movement should be started against India. I mean, if it could be started for Palestine, why not for India? Why should the rest of the world transact with India when it is brutalizing the people of Jammu and Kashmir? In fact, by investing in India, you are underwriting this carnage and genocide in Kashmir. And you have every right to question India about its actions in Jammu and Kashmir, which flagrantly violate international law and international humanitarian law. And by the way, these domicile rules that I described to you in such detail, they are a direct violation of Article 49 of the 4th Geneva Convention, Additional Protocol 1, ICC Statute, Security Council resolutions, and Special Rapporteur on these forced migrations, import of people in conflict zones. So a BDS movement, we had a seminar, and some Arabs are thinking of imposing, some of the Gulf states are thinking of imposing some form of sanctions against India. Now, United Kingdom is a permanent member of the Security Council. And therefore, after Brexit and after your elections, I think it is your responsibility, your obligation to be more active on Kashmir. And you can assume leadership on this issue because of your familiarity with the region, because of your thorough knowledge of the history of the Kashmir dispute. And in the same breath, I would say that you have very able former British prime ministers or statesmen of international stature. They could start some sort of mediation, some sort of conversation on Kashmir. Why not? Because India's intention is to remove the Kashmir dispute from the global agenda. But if you would start these conversations, or if you would start these mediation efforts, you would be putting Kashmir back on the international agenda, and that would be very helpful for the people of Jammu and Kashmir. 2 or 3 points that I want to clarify. You know, I was in the House of Commons, I listened to a debate, and I also was in the House of Lords. And I'll tell you that when the FCO representative responded to the questions, they would usually take refuge behind the bilateral nature of the dispute. And let me clarify and say very categorically that the Jammu and Kashmir dispute is not a bilateral issue. That this stance has to be rectified. I don't know how it would be done, but let me tell you that it is a trilateral issue. It's a tripartite issue. And the three parties are Pakistan, India, and the people of Jammu and Kashmir. And this is a principle which was recognized by the United Nations Security Council itself. It said that Pakistan and India would facilitate, and so would the United Nations, but the people of Jammu and Kashmir would determine their political future. So this is a cardinal principle which has been recognized by the Security Council. Let's not tinker with it. Let's not alter it. So this India's argument that it's a bilateral issue is disingenuous, because last year when they took action, these illegal actions, they never consulted Pakistan. If it was a bilateral issue, they should have informed Pakistan, warned Pakistan. They should have taken Pakistan and Kashmiris into confidence. They did not. Another clarification that I want to make is that the people of Azad Kashmir and the people of Pakistan are not sponsoring terrorism across the line of control. This is a lie that India repeats ad nauseum. And I say it with full authority and full authenticity that there are no launch pads on this side of the line of control. And India, taking a page from Goebbels' book, India repeats this lie again and again so that they can delude and mislead the rest of the world and find some justification for their crimes against humanity in the occupied territory in the name of fighting terrorists. Last 2 points. First is that it is Kashmiri's resolve that we have been beaten very badly. We have given sacrifices of 500,000 people in the past 72 years. But it is our determination and resolve that we would liberate this territory, that we would win freedom, that we want peace and tranquility and amity in the region. We are not warmongers, but we would protect our rights. We would protect our rights, and my fear is that if India's suppression continues, there would be armed resistance. It will radicalize the youth of the Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. You can't stop them. This is against the law of nature. And my appeal to you, the British parliamentarians, with my gratitude, my appeal to you is to avert a catastrophic war in the region, which is on the horizon. So with this, I thank you, and I keenly look forward to listening to your remarks. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, President Saab. Now I would like to request Jack Brereton, Deputy Chairman APPKG on Kashmir, who represents the Conservative Party, a very active supporter of ours, because he has to leave early. So can I request Jack to speak before? Oh, is he gone? So can I request Andrew Gwynn to speak, please?
Thank you, Rajan Najabat, and thank you, Mr. President, for the update. We really appreciate your time. Want to echo the concerns that you've raised, not just about the human rights abuses, and I think it's important that parliamentarians across the House of Commons continue to raise the very serious human rights abuses in Jammu and Kashmir at this time, and we should never let up on that. But it is also very worrying to hear what you've said about the increase in tensions from India, not just towards Pakistan, but also China, and the potential that both of those issues have in the geopolitics of the region, and we should be very attuned to that. I also want to echo your tribute to my colleague Debbie Abrahams and the work of the all-party parliamentary group on Kashmir, because genuinely, as you say, Mr. President, this is an issue that should and does transcend party politics. It's right that we have our own party groupings, like the Labour Friends of Kashmir that I have the privilege of chairing, so we can have those distinct conversations within our own parties. But the beauty of the all-party parliamentary group is that it brings together parliamentarians from across the House of Commons and the House of Lords, and we can speak with one voice, which adds more power, I think, to the cause. In terms of what you say about the new domiciled rules, I think that's something that, as you rightly mention, we should be lobbying the Foreign and Commonwealth Office and Number 10 about, and Britain should be using whatever influence we have in the international community and within the Commonwealth as well, where both India and Pakistan are key members of that organisation, to ensure that these issues of human rights, of the new domiciled rules, and on the tensions are raised at every forum that we can. And it's on that I think you hit the nail on the head, where you rightly say this is not a bilateral issue. I have never subscribed to the view that this is solely an issue to be resolved between Pakistan and India. Yes, both parties have to be around the table, because that is the real politics of this, that part of the territory is administered by India and part is administered by Pakistan. But the reality is this is an international issue, as has been recognised with the United Nations Security Council resolutions dating back over 7 decades. And no decision, as you rightly say, can be taken about what happens to the territories that make up Kashmir without the involvement of the Kashmiri people and the Kashmiri diaspora. And I think that is a really important point that we have to stress continuously to our own civil servants and ministers in the United Kingdom, so that they can understand that this has to involve the Kashmiri people as well. I also think you are absolutely right, sir, to say that there needs to be some form of international mediation, whether that's done by the United Kingdom or by somebody else, doesn't really matter. There needs to be some form of mediation, in the same way that that Norway took the lead with the Oslo Accords between Israel and the Palestinian Liberation Organization, and likewise Senator George Mitchell and the effort that he and the American administration put into the Northern Ireland peace process at the early stages. And I think that the time is right for the international community to do this. And then lastly, I would support moves to increase our activity in the House of Commons with a debate, as you say, as early as possible, to lobby ministers and the Prime Minister, and to use whatever format is at our disposal to raise the issue of the abuses and the situation on the ground in Indian occupied Kashmir, so that we can hopefully try and secure that path to justice that is so desperately, after 7 decades, long overdue. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Andrew. Thank you for your all cooperation and support. Can I welcome Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, Angela Rayner, Member of Parliament from Ashton, great supporter of our cause. So she might she's very busy person, so I would like to request her to speak first, and then we will request our APPG chairperson, Debbie, and other parliamentarians. So Angela Rayner, please.
Raja, thank you so much, and it's an absolute pleasure to see you again. Assalamu alaikum. And I'm sorry, I'm literally whizzing in this meeting and whizzing out of it. I didn't want to miss coming over and speaking to you, but also to say that I'm really pleased that Andrew Gwynn is the chair of the party group on Kashmir. I think it's so important that that work continues. And I say that in the context of, first of all, in terms of our own party, I want to reiterate that our position hasn't changed. And human rights abuses anywhere in the world will always stand up robustly about that. And Keir's very clear, Keir Starmer, our new leader as well, on that basis, because he's a human rights lawyer by trade, and he would never let that and his core principles go against that. So I want to reiterate that. To get lasting peace in Kashmir, we have to have the discussions between the Pakistan and Indian governments. It's so important that that dialogue continues. And therefore, my real firm push really at the moment is about the Conservatives letting down our government currently, letting us down in terms of ensuring that those conversations take place and that we do speak out against human rights abuses. So whilst we have policy positions and people will argue those positions within the Labour Party, and that's quite right, that we are a democratic party and we do debate these very important issues, we cannot lose sight of the fact that we haven't got a general election coming up imminently. So for the next couple of years, unfortunately, unless there is one of my prayers are answered, then the Conservatives are going to be in power here and they are the government. And therefore we've got to come together and make sure that we push forward on some of these issues that are affecting people in Kashmir today. The children in Kashmir today who are unsafe, the human rights abuses that continue, and the fear that people in Kashmir have every single day. My position personally, as a trade unionist, as a Labour socialist throughout my career, has always been to stand up for the people of Kashmir. That will never change. As your deputy leader of the Labour Party, my position hasn't changed. Keir Starmer's position hasn't changed, and neither has the Labour Party's position. We will continue to support to make sure that people of Kashmir and their voices are heard. But we've got to make sure that we turn our fury and our passion and our commitment to the people of Kashmir on where we can make a real difference at the moment, and that's with our current government and what they're doing there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Angela, can I now request leader of our campaign, Debbie Abrams, MP, chairperson of APPKG on Kashmir, please. Debbie.
Thank you so much. I hope you can all hear me now. And it's a pleasure to be at this conference call. Thank you for the well wishes of President Khan, and thank you also, Rajan Ashbat, as you always do, for putting the interests of Kashmiris at the heart of all we do. As has been mentioned, I'm the chair of the all-party group for Kashmir. We have members from across all political parties and from all heritages, so from Kashmiri, Pakistani and Indian heritages. And it's appropriate that I'm able to pass on my apologies from Tan Desi Singh, who had hoped to be here, but unfortunately can't make the timings today. We've heard a lot and talked a lot in terms of the human rights abuses. And I noted, very unfortunately, some of the chat before disputing some of these facts. These are facts that have been raised by the United Nations Human Rights Commissioner consistently now, 2 separate reports raising issues around human rights abuses on both sides of the line of control, but especially with regard to Indian administered Kashmir. The APPKG, which I chair, is absolutely about focusing on addressing the issues of human rights abuses. So I was very privilege to visit Azad Kashmir. I'd hoped, as had all the members of the APPKG delegation, to also visit Indian administered Kashmir to see for ourselves exactly what is going on the ground, to meet with people unfettered, to understand from a first-hand perspective and not indirectly what is going on. Unfortunately, that invitation wasn't agreed by the Indian government, and I regret that. And we are seeing, as Andrew and others have mentioned already, an escalation of issues. If we think that the UK has been in a lockdown for the last 10 weeks, Jammu and Kashmir have been in lockdown for the last 10 months. We are getting medical reports of not just the humanitarian issues around accessing medicines and medical services, but also in terms of the mental health effects that this is having on Kashmiris, and that should concern us all. As also has been mentioned, there are concerns around the Jammu and Kashmir reorganisation order, which slipped through again in the same way that the revocation of Articles 370 and 35A were. So this is a real concern. It is in contravention again with Article 49 of the Geneva Convention, as well as UN Security Council resolutions that have been agreed in the past. And we need to be mindful of that. Andrew also mentioned the recent moves by the Chinese military north of Ladakh in the Gorwe Valley and around the line of actual control. And this is a serious concern and heightens even more the geopolitical significance of this region. One of my real concerns has been the lack of attention that the international community, based on the rule of law and on human rights, has failed to act. It really is a travesty that the international community, 2 Security Council meetings specifically on the issues of the revocation of Article 370 without any outcome. And the seriousness of this has really been ignored, and we must consolidate. We must come together to act now. It is only by the international community working together to provide some leverage and pressure on all parties that we are going to move forward. Now, whether that is in terms of the an arbiter or some other means, but action is needed from all of the international community to bring all parties together. I also agree it is not a bilateral issue. This is an issue that at the heart of it must always have the Kashmiri people at the centre. I just want to finish, if I may. We must, if we are going to move forward, we all need to hold our hands up when there are concerns, wherever they may be. And there are also issues, and I'm conscious that the attendance of this at this conference call may be questioning some of the things that are said, but we must all hold our hands up when there are issues in areas that we are responsible for. So I would urge that Pakistan and Pakistan administered Kashmir looks at those particular areas that were raised by the UN Human Rights Commissioner in his reports of 2018 and 2019, particularly on the issues of, and it was raised by President Khan, particularly on the issues raised around terrorism and terror funding. These have also been raised by the UN's committees on sanctions for Daesh and Al-Qaeda. So they can't be ignored. Similarly, the Financial Action Task Force, which is again due to make a decision this month on whether to remove Pakistan from the grey list around terror financing. This has to be addressed. If it cannot be ignored. And finally, the position of religious minorities. These are all things that I know that President Khan takes very seriously. I also know that Prime Minister Khan, in conversations during our visit, also shared his views on that and how action must be taken. So thank you very much for inviting me. We can't have prosperity in the region. We can't have prosperity in the world without peace. So we all need to work together to hold our hand up when we're not doing as well as we may be, and work together to address the future sustainable peace for the Kashmiris. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Debbie. Can I now request Sam Terry, Member of Parliament, to join us? And we have got Governor Punjab, Chaudhry Mohammed Sarwar on the line. He will speak after that.
Thank you, Mr. Najbat, and thank you for inviting me here today alongside the President and obviously the Pakistan High Commission and all my honourable colleagues from across the Commons. Look, I won't say too much to add really to what both Debbie has so eloquently said and what Andrew has said in his role with Labour Friends of Kashmir. But for me, this is a really live issue in my constituency. During the election, I would sit in dozens and dozens of people's homes and hear the fire burning in their hearts against the injustice that their own families were facing, relatives under lockdown, people disappeared, people that have been persecuted across Kashmir. So the issue is a very real one because it's people's lived experiences and the experiences of friends and family members. And I've been someone that's involved in politics throughout my life, really much campaigning on human rights. Now, I have to obviously strike a very careful balance. We have a very large Sikh and Hindu community in Ilford as well, who are very vocal about their concerns. But one thing I'm always clear with every community in Ilford and across East London is that human rights are indivisible, that any government is not beyond reproach, and that I will be strident in calling out any government that goes above and beyond anything that is internationally acceptable. I think that there are many MPs, and you've heard obviously from Angela Rayner, our new deputy leader of the Labour Party, how passionately she feels about this, and that Labour's position hasn't changed. And in fact, actually, we're hopefully going to be able to embark on a process involving many of the people on this call to actually formulate a deeper and more meaningful policy position on the issue of Kashmir that can go forward with the Labour Party, that helps actually to proactively engage internationally, so the issue isn't just one that's talked about, it's one that we practically do something about. And I'll have to be honest, tensions have been even higher in my part of East London as well, because of the actions of the Modi government on certain minority communities, particularly many Muslim Indians who feel very persecuted. And I've always said, this isn't about being pro-Kashmir, pro-India, pro-Pakistan. I'm pro-Indian as much as I'm pro-Pakistan. This is about being pro-human rights and about those human rights being applied properly and with international communities and people in this country and every country around the world who have a direct right, in my view, to be able to speak out about injustice, able to say this is not just an issue that is one that is between India and Kashmir, but actually we need the international community to be observing and to be playing a proactive part. After all, if we are going to strike trade agreements, if we are going to build partnerships with any country internationally, that has to be done, in my view, very firmly on the basis of human rights. And both Pakistan and India are huge trading partners for this country. And so those things, and I've asked questions to the International Trade Minister in the House of Commons here fairly recently, exactly on that issue, because it's really key. We have a responsibility as parliamentarians in the UK to use that leverage to help for more peaceful resolutions and to, in fact, uncover when there are things that are going on which are totally unjust, as many of the previous speakers have described so powerfully in the last half an hour. So really, from my point of view, I'm going to be seeking as much as possible to engage the leadership of the Labour Party. I had over 130 organisations, not just from Ilford, but from across the whole of East London and North London as well, write to me and then write to Keir Starmer as well. So we are looking to engage robustly on this and in the spirit of constructive dialogue. so that we can actually have a Labour Party position that is about moving the issue forward in a proactive way and with human rights at its very heart.
Thank you very much, Sam. Now we have got our Honorable Governor of Punjab, Chaudhry Mohammed Sarwar, former member of Parliament from House of Commons from Glasgow Central. He is serving as a Governor of Punjab at the moment, but his heart and his support really for the Kashmir since he was local councillor, MP, and then member of the Senate in Pakistan. Can I welcome Chaudhry Mohammed Sarwar, please? No. Can I request Narendra Singh Khalsa from Jammu, who is one of the Dogra who works for the Kashmiri self-determination. When it comes to state of Jammu and Kashmir, we work all together, whether we are Muslims, Hindus, Sikh, Christian or Buddhist in state of Jammu and Kashmir. And can I request Narendra Singh to say a few words, please? Please. No? Next. Can I request Bell Ribera to say a few words, please? Bell, Member of Parliament from Streatham.
Hello, thank you very much for inviting me to be on this call with all of you at this very important time. I think it's very clear the strength of feeling on this call, and you know, that those of us, the Labour MPs on this call, definitely reaffirm our solidarity with the people of Kashmir. It's very, very important that we are clear about the ongoing human rights violations and the torture and executions that are happening, and furthermore that we hold firm to the policy that was passed at the Labour Party conference in 2019. The policy is no different from what's in a number of different UN resolutions, and you know, any country that ignores that should be challenged. We should challenge them. We should make clear that, you know, it's not simply bilateral issues, as has been said before. We as an international community cannot stand by whilst these things continue. And the UK in particular has to recognise its responsibility about what's happening in Kashmir due to, you know, historic injustices and what the UK have been involved in the past. Most notably the partition of the Indian subcontinent. And you know, just to let everybody know that we continue to stand in solidarity with you. We are listening to what is being said. We are acting on that, and we will not stand by whilst the human rights of the people of Kashmir are violated. We respect the right to self-determination always, and that's something that should be acknowledged, not just here in the UK, particularly here in the UK, as I said, because of our historical links, but across the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bell. Can I now request another freedom fighter of Kashmir in the European Parliament, Anthea McIntyre, former MEP from West Midlands, to speak, please. Anthea.
Thank you very much for inviting me today. And it's so good to see so many people at this conference. I think if there's one thing that's come out of this lockdown is the ability we now have to all use Zoom to meet like this. And for somebody who is now out of European Parliament, it is a very good way for me to be able to keep in touch with all of you. And it is so important that we keep this issue of Kashmir in the forefront of public attention. So I would like to congratulate Raja Najabat on the organisation of today. And I think also I'd like to just recall my visit to Azad Kashmir. It was very good to see you again, Mr. President, and I very much enjoyed my visit. There's nothing like going to the place and seeing what's happening on the ground and speaking to a wide range of people to get a better understanding of the situation in Kashmir, and I was very pleased to be able to do that. And I think it saddens me that I see my old friend Richard Corbett there. It saddens me that we aren't any longer running the joint cross-party organisation that we were able to do in the European Parliament, because it did bring us into contact with people right around the world and able to keep raising this issue. Human rights obviously is enormously important, and it was great that the European Parliament actually had a hearing in conjunction with the UN report on Kashmir. That was quite an achievement, because it's not something that had happened before, and that was a very good step forward. And actually, I am hugely encouraged by the letter that was signed by 15 members of the European Parliament very recently on the topic of Kashmir. And I've just looked, there were 8 different countries represented, ranging Austria, Belgium, Finland, France, Germany, Ireland, Italy, Spain, right across Europe, getting themselves involved in this issue. And I have to say that while Richard and I were there, the discussions of the all-party group on Kashmir was heavily dominated by British MEPs. And despite our efforts to try and involve other countries, we really failed to get them engaged. So perhaps a good thing of us going is that other MEPs from this range of countries have actually come forward and got themselves involved. Now that is very encouraging, because as has been said before, Kashmir is not a bilateral issue. It is something that the whole world needs to be involved in. And to see that these other European countries are demanding action and demanding something be done, that is very good news, and it's a positive sign that we're seeing. But nevertheless, the downside, if you like, of the lockdown that we have is that we don't actually know enough of what is currently happening in Kashmir. We know that India has locked down Kashmir. We know of the abuses that have been going on for years, but with the news blockade, we're not seeing as much as we were. So it was really good to have the President give us great details of exactly what's happening and go into the issues of the land grab and the acquisition of property being denied and so on. All of those are very valuable, because I think having chapter and verse rather than just a sort of blanket condemnation is very helpful in pursuing the human rights and ensuring something is done. So I think it's hugely important that we keep this all-party approach. I know that I can't see very many other Conservative members on this call. I have to assure you that that's not a lack of interest. It is a demand on time that people find they cannot necessarily stay for the whole course. But we've always approached this on a joint party, all-party basis. And the 70 years that we've had this issue of Kashmir have seen many different governments in the United Kingdom. And I don't think any of them come out of it particularly well. So let's make a party political issue out of this. All parties are very keen to defend human rights and see the issue of Kashmir resolved, and to see self-determination come for the people of Kashmir. So thank you for allowing me to be here today.
Thank you very much, Anthea. Jack was here in the beginning because he gave us time, and we will be having Mike Wood, James Daly, Christian Wackford, and I think there will be some others as well, because it's our conference is for 3 hours. Now, I would like to request Governor Punjab, Mohammed Sarwar, to say a few words, please.
Thank you, Rajendra Jabat, for arranging this very, I think, timely conference. And I am grateful to all the participants. On 5th August 2019, all of you know that Narendra Modi and Indian government changed the special status of Kashmir and revoked Article 35A and 370. And since then, the people of Kashmir are under military siege, and atrocities, brutality, and violation of human rights are taking place, unfortunately, every day. The last thing which has happened, which has really, it's very disturbing, very hurtful, that Indian Army has killed 13 young people under the false this counter. And I think this is very alarming for the whole international community, the way Indian government is treating the people in Kashmir. And it is very encouraging to note that the letter is written by 15 members of European Parliament to the European Commission chairman, which highlights the plight of the people of Kashmir and ask for self-determination for the people of Kashmir, and also raises the issue of minority communities and particularly the Muslims in India. And all of you know that we have with us Debbie Ibrahim, who was refused entry at the Daly airport. International observers, human rights organizations, members of parliament, members of Senate in United States, or congressmen, nobody is allowed to visit Jammu and Kashmir over the last 300 days. So I hope and that when we finish this conference, all the members of parliament, my former colleagues who are participating in this conference, they will raise the issue in the House of Commons in United Kingdom, and will raise this issue with the British government. And I'm glad to tell you that MEP Mary Arena also wrote the letter to the Indian Home Minister that this unlawful activities Prevention Act is unacceptable, and which is being used to declare individuals as terrorists. So I think this is now time that we all stand up against this injustice which is taking place in Jammu and Kashmir from decade. I do understand there are many participants today, so I need to be very brief. I want to only request that this is absolutely right. It is a non-party issue in the United Kingdom. When I was a member of parliament myself, I knew that people from all the political parties, they were supporting the cause of Kashmir. And we have, the voices in British Parliament, which come from different political parties. And I think we should all join hands to stand up against Indian government atrocities in Jammu and Kashmir. And I want to wish you all well. We are going through a very big crisis of Corona, COVID-19 in the world. And I know there are many people who have lost their lives in United Kingdom, in which there are many doctors, nurses, and paramedical staff. My prayers and well wishes are with those victims and with their families and friends who have lost their lives in this COVID-19. But at the same time, I want to say that we should not forget the plight of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. Raja Najabat, you always been a great supporter of good causes in United Kingdom. You always supported the people of Palestine. You always supported the people of Kashmir. And I'm very grateful to you for organizing this conference. And if anybody want to ask any question on the perspective from Pakistan, I will be very happy to answer those questions. And all I want to say is on behalf of my government that our priority, our policy is have good friend relations with all our neighbors, and we are playing a key role to facilitate a dialogue in Afghanistan between Taliban and between Afghan government. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Governor Saab. Now I would like to request another friends of Kashmiris from the European Parliament, although he's not a member of Parliament at the moment, but still gone back to European Parliament, Richard Corbett, who was leader of the Labour group in the European Parliament and co-chair of Kashmir Friends of European Parliament. Richard.
Thank you very briefly, because much has been said already, with which I can of course only agree. But I'd like to start by thanking you, Raja, for keeping your ceaseless efforts up, keeping a network going like this, even in these times where we cannot physically meet, is very important, keeping us in touch, keeping us active. And like Anthea, I'm very glad that others are taking up the torch in the European Parliament now that we have sadly left it. I'd just say one thing which I think has not been touched on so far, and that is how to engage with India. Of course, we must criticize the Indian government for what it has done, rightly. Rightly, the criticism is right, I mean, not the action. But we must also think of ways of trying to put pressure on India and shaping Indian public opinion. Because the actions that were taken cannot be in India's best long-term interest. It is a tarnish on India's reputation, its self-perception as a democratic, law-abiding country doesn't stand up when faced with what it is doing in Indian-occupied Kashmir. The occupation itself costs them a fortune. This is in a country where expenditures are needed elsewhere, not on repressing people in an occupied territory. These points must be made as well, so that within India, where there are voices who are critical of what the government is doing, they are given sustenance in their debate internally within India. I just wanted to make that point, not to detract from the other points that have already been made by others, but to add that little bit to our debate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. We're having a few internet connections and batteries dying on us. So I'm going to ask for our next speaker. I'd like to welcome Shafaq Mohammed to say a few words.
Assalamu alaikum, and nice to see. Nice to see all my former friends and colleagues, Anthea, Richard and Julie. We are living in some unusual times, but thank you, Roger and colleagues, for organising today's meeting. I agree with a lot of what's been said, so I'm not going to repeat that, but one thing I am going to say, given that we both got President Masood Khan, as well as Governor Sarwar Saab and the High Commissioner for Pakistan, Zakria Saab there, is that whilst the world's attention is on rightly so on America at the moment in terms of Black Lives Matter, I just do want to remind people that actually Kashmiri lives matter as well. And whilst it's right that people are demonstrating for justice in America, I would urge the Governor and the President of Azad Kashmir and the High Commissioner here in London that actually we need to highlight that Kashmiri lives are also important. And I, this morning, was sent messages from a Kashmiri resident of Sheffield, but from the Indian side, with pictures of what's been going off in the last few years in India, and in particular, the issue around a gentleman called Kaisar Amin Butt, who on the 1st of June in 2018 was run over and killed by an Indian Army armoured vehicle at a protest outside the Jamia Masjid in Srinagar. And 2 other protesters were also run over by armoured cars and sustained injuries earlier that year on the 5th. So therefore, police brutality is not just limited to America. You know, we see incidents of it in Kashmir, and I think when the world's attention is on police brutality, I think we should use all our powers. And similarly, a plea to Ali Raza Saeed, who's also on here from Brussels. Ali Saab, a role for us all there and for you in Brussels to kind of almost have a hashtag, Kashmiri Lives Matter. You know, if we can all have this hashtag, I think we can go forward. And, you know, our thoughts and prayers are with people during this COVID-19 lockdown. And I really do hope that we do come out of this. And once we're out of it, we can actually meet in person and we can meet the Governor of Punjab or the President of Azad Kashmir that myself, Richard and Raja Saab and Arena Van Visa met just before the Article 370 and 35A were revoked middle of last year. So once again, Raja Saab and Yasmin and others, thank you for organising the meeting. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share. Let's get Kashmiri Lives Matters trending just as Black Lives Matters is trending at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are not coming back from Europe. We will invite the European, another very strong freedom fighter of Kashmiri nation, Julie Ward. She's always been there in Pakistan, in UK, and wherever we have invited her, she was there. So can I welcome her? Although she's here from 2 o'clock. So Julie, welcome.
Okay, thank you very much, Raja. Thank you also, Yasmin. You both do a really important, amazing job, and I think you show great leadership that you come together across different political traditions to put forward the importance, the universal importance, really, of human rights and self-determination. And I really appreciate, in fact, having listened to the previous speakers, catching up on the incredible detail that Debbie Abrahams was able to give us and the assurances that came from Angela Rayner too. But I was going back to the title of this conference, which is Peace and Prosperity in Kashmir. I want to say thank you for talking about hope, for talking about something that we must look towards in the future. Obviously, it's the path to get there that is really concerning us, because there cannot be peace without justice, and there cannot be prosperity without peace and without justice. And so keeping in mind the importance of peace and prosperity, and how everybody has a right really to live in peace. Everybody has a right to be able to enjoy human rights and to afford you know, to have a job, to be able to live in their communities, and to have not just the basics, but more than the basics, I think. And in that respect, I was reminding myself from my visit with you of the incredible resources, the natural resources that exist in the region, the amazing potential for a tourist industry, and how if we can just bring the situation to a proper good resolution, then I think that the region would be a leader in many, many ways. But of course, the path is still very fraught and difficult, and that's why we're here today. But let's keep talking about the positives and the kind of future that the people of Kashmir and Jammu could have in the future. And that also has to involve young people. And those of you who know me will know that I am a very strong campaigner for young people. I was a member of the Education and Culture Committee in the European Parliament, and also very accessible to my young constituents across the northwest of England when I was an MEP. And the young people that I've met in the region when we went to that university for a conference will always be in my mind. They will always be there as people who have learnt about their culture, their heritage, learnt their sense of civic responsibility, the importance of working together, the importance of non-violent struggle. And I think that we have a duty, those of us who have any influence whatsoever or any platform from which to speak, have to always put those young people in front of our minds. Can I say a few more words? Sorry, there was a bit of interference there. I want to talk a little bit about trade, because trade also is a key to prosperity. So there we have, wonderful resources in Jammu and Kashmir, which at the minute cannot benefit the region and the people. But trade is of enormous interest to the UK and of increasing interest because of Brexit. And I am very worried that the British government's pursuit of trade at any price post-Brexit will mean the trashing of human rights. And in the European Parliament last October, we passed a resolution supporting the UN binding mechanism on human rights in trade agreements. And I would urge all of the members of the British Parliament who have been on this call and who you work with, Raja and Yasmin, to look at the really excellent work that we did in the European Parliament about making sure that human rights will be front and centre of any trade agreement. And I think this could be a very influential point with regard to discussions with India. So let's not forget that. And I thought that it was very brave also of the president at the beginning to raise the issue of BDS. We have to find ways of leveraging our power. We have to, we have to find ways of doing things which demonstrate that human rights abuses cannot be allowed to continue when modern democratic nations want to have these trade agreements with each other. And in the European Parliament, we also did some excellent work on ensuring that goods from illegal settlements in occupied Palestine would not be allowed to enter the European market, that labelling was a huge issue. So we found, if you like, a legal way and a way to do that, given that the EU is a market of 28, well now 27 different countries, but also with very, very important relationships with third countries too. So the issue of trade and human rights, and it was excellent to hear Sam, who is a new MP, talk in such strong terms about the importance of putting human rights front and centre. I was very, very concerned about the settlement issue that was brought to our attention by the President. The changing of demographics is in fact one of the steps to genocide, and we have to be very aware of that. It's not something that is just happening under our noses in Jammu and Kashmir, but it's also happening in northern Syria, in Afrin, where the Kurdish community, who I also work very, very closely with, are being replaced in order to destroy that culture. And obviously the changing demographics in Palestine because of the illegal settlements is also of concern. And I do think that there's a need for people involved in this struggle to learn from and work with other enduring struggles for democracy and human rights. And I think that that is beginning to happen. It seems to be working more and more, that people have to join forces across all kinds of borders and divides to stand in solidarity with one another. So in fact, this issue now about Black Lives Matter is an issue where people have to hold hands and stand up for each other. You know, one of the most important core values of the EU is solidarity. It's solidarity with others, particularly in times of trouble. And I think we need to remind ourselves of that important core principle. It should be something that we're signed up to, whether or not we are members of the EU. And perhaps two final points. One is about whether this is a bilateral issue, whether it's just an issue for, for the UK as a historic partner or whatever. This is an international issue, and I'm so glad to see that former colleagues of mine, including my wonderful friend Maria Rayner from the Socialists and Democrats group, who is chair of the Human Rights Subcommittee. I'm so pleased to see that those colleagues have listened when we have brought you out to the European Parliament. They've taken that struggle and the human rights issues absolutely to their heart, and they are continuing the important work that we all did there. Because there is a diaspora in Brussels, there is a diaspora in Germany, there is a diaspora in Denmark, there is a diaspora in France. The diaspora is everywhere, and so this has to be an issue that is addressed by all countries, not just by the UK alone, or the UK brushing it off and saying it is something that should just be sorted out between India and Pakistan. And so I've been very interested to see what the UK's response to Hong Kong has been. And I think that if the issue about Hong Kong has suddenly become so important for the British government, their historic relationship with Hong Kong, then surely the historic relationship with the people of Kashmir has to be front and centre as well. So I'm going to finish there, but thank you for inviting me. And those of you who are not busy on Sunday at 1 o'clock GMT might like to join a further conference that I will be speaking at as part of my Momentum Internationalists campaigning organisation. So thanks all of you. And stay safe.
Thank you very much, Julie. We will join you, inshallah. And can I now, we had several members of parliament, Tony Lloyd, Mohammed Yassin, Naz Shah, Tracy Braben, Rachel Hopkins, and Sarah Owen came again the second time. So can I request Sarah Owen MP, Member of Parliament from Luton North, to say a few words, please?
Thank you very much for this opportunity to join the conference today, and His Excellency again for his heartfelt account. Something that His Excellency said earlier this week about the horrific human rights abuses is for us to feel with our heart. He said to us, feel with your heart. And that is exactly what I believe we should be doing. And I believe that it should be core to any of our cross-party work when it comes to securing the rights and safety of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. And I particularly want to give my support to the words of our Deputy Leader, Angela Rayner, Andrew Gwynn and Debbie Abrahams, and many other party colleagues that have spoken today around the Labour Party's commitment to stand up and to speak out against human rights abuses and delivering the UN resolutions on the absolute right to self-determination for the people of Kashmir. This isn't just an issue for Kashmir, this is an issue for everyone, especially in communities like mine in Luton, and even more so when we are in a time of global crisis. Coronavirus should have been an opportunity for coming together, but sadly others have used it to spread further hatred and division in Kashmir and other parts of the world. And as another delegate said, every Kashmiri life matters, which is why I think it's also important that we as politicians speak up, not just about human rights abuses in Kashmir, but also the disproportionate amount of deaths that we are seeing among our Asian and our Black communities and our ethnic minority communities in the UK during this pandemic as well, because it is our diverse communities that are stepping up and are at the front line of this pandemic as well here in the UK. So I was going to keep this brief because I know there are many more people to get in, but now is not the time for us to turn away from securing human rights for all and justice for the Kashmiri people. Now is the time to step up. And I'd just like to reiterate my thanks again for the opportunity to come express my solidarity from the people of Luton North and my personal solidarity as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for your continued support and work which you are doing at the moment with the local community and in the parliament. Can I now request a representative of Kashmir Valley, convener All Parties Hurriyat Conference, Azad Kashmir chapter, Sayyid Faiz Naqshbandi, to say a few words. Now we will try to get representation from Jammu, Ladakh, Gilgit, and other regions as well. So, Faiz Naqshbandi, sir, please.
Thank you very much. First of all, it is indeed a pleasure for us to convey our congratulations, gratitude to Raja and Javed sir for organizing this virtual conference. I also convey my gratitude to all the people. We are highly thankful to all the people all over the world who have raised voice against the human rights violations in Indian occupied Kashmir and are supporting our right to self-determination. Kashmir dispute has three important dimensions. One, it is a political issue. It is an issue pending before the United Nations, and we want the implementation of the UN resolutions in letter and separate. The second aspect is the human rights. The human rights violations have reached at alarming level. Inhuman laws framed by the government of India are in force. These laws provide impunity to the Indian armed forces. No suit can lie against any Indian soldier in any court of law. This situation has drastically increased the human rights violations. And the third point is the security in the region. More than 900,000 Indian troops are stationed in Indian occupied Kashmir, making this area most militarized zone in the world. It has poses a threat to the neighbors and the people living there. There is a simple question, what the people of the Kashmir are demanding. We are demanding the implementation of UN resolutions on Jammu and Kashmir in letter and separate. And our second demand is that the human rights violations taking place in Indian occupied Kashmir must be stopped immediately. The United Nations recommendations mentioned in the reports of 2018 and 19 must be implemented. We appeal to all the parliamentarians of the world to impress upon India, to impress upon the government of India to implement the UN resolutions in letter and separate. And we also appeal to the United Nations for establishment of commission of inquiry so that facts may come to the light. With this, I once again thank Mr. Rajana Javed and his colleagues for organizing this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Naqshbandi Sahab. I always think that you will make a long speech, but thank you very much for giving time to others. Can I now request Ali Raza Sayyed, who is chairman of Kashmir Council EU and working actively, whatever we are receiving in these days, very strong support from the European Union. That's because of Ali Raza Sayyed and Kashmir Council EU. Janab Ali Raza Sayyed Sahab.
Thank you. Do you hear me, Raisa? Raisa, do you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Yes, I hear you. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Raisa. Thank you very much for giving us the time. And I really appreciate your efforts, as always you are doing for the people of Jammu and Kashmir. I will not take much time. There are just the point which raised by Julie Ward, also Shafaq Mohammed also, that we have to reach the people of India as well. Because the people of India, they matter. They don't know what is happening in Kashmir because of Indian government's censorship and the government's policy towards the Kashmir. Most of the Indian population, they don't know. But thanks God that the voices of the people of Jammu and Kashmir is heard everywhere in the world now. In Europe, you can see that for last 2 months, there are 3 reports or the documents they issued. The first was from the research center of the European Parliament. That document is very important because that is for the people, the new MEPs and for the institutions, that whenever they need to know about the conflict, they should have the first-hand information about the situation in that region. And the secondly, then Maria Rayner, the human rights chairperson, she wrote a letter to Mr. Amit Shah, the Home Minister of India. She showed the concern of the Human Rights Subcommittee. That is also very important. And now the members of European Parliament, they issued a letter to the President of European Commission and High Representative of European Union, that the atrocities and what is happening in Kashmir should stop now, because since the Modi second time when they were elected, he started to use the maximum force against the people of Jammu and Kashmir, and he wants to try to finish this movement of freedom, but by force you cannot. The only way to move forward is to negotiate, to talk with the people and stop the human rights violation. and stop the using of force. Look what is happening in US. The policeman, what he has done with a black African American, and the whole US is out crying against this crime and against the inequality. And the people of Kashmir, they are crying for last 70 years. And it is now time for international community to come forward and to help the people of Jammu and Kashmir. And the real face of Indian democracy, which was always portrayed by the Indian government in the international forums, that it's the biggest democracy, it's a secular state, but now it is tarnished by Modi. And now it's the real face of India, which is shown to the world. So my appeal to the international community and to the member of European Parliament and member of House of Commons and all those who are listening, that we have to continue our struggle peacefully and to reach the public and reach the representative of the countries here in Europe and in UK, to put the pressure on India to stop what they are doing. They cannot succeed. The people of Kashmir, they will get their right to self-determination. Raya Sahab, thank you very much for giving us the time, and hope to see you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Shah Sahab. Before I invite President of Azad Kashmir again, I would like to request Sarish Kamar MLA, Chairperson JKSDMI Azad Kashmir, to say a few words, please. Sarish. Sarish.
जी, अस्सलाम वालेकुम.
जी, बात करें.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम, Raja Sahab. Can you hear me?
Yes.
First of all, I want to thank you to highlight this point, because when we always talk about the politics or about the situation in Azad Kashmir or in occupied Kashmir, but no one noticed the resources or the ways that we can use to give a way for a Kashmir towards the prosperity and peace. I have heard all of the speakers, they talk about the Kashmir issue. It's in our heart, but I want to highlight the resources of the Kashmir that is always ignored. And that is the key for the peace and prosperity. First of all, Kashmir is rich in hydropower. We all know about that. The hydropower is a renewable power generation that can help Kashmir meet the sustainable development goals through the provision of access to clean resource, reliable and affordable energy. Hydroelectricity cost is relatively low, which makes it competitive source of renewable electricity. And we all know about the tourism. The natural beauty in Kashmir have made it a heaven on earth and favored destination for tourists across the world includes the lakes and gardens. You know that all of the tourists across the world are attracted by the beauty of the Kashmir. Heritage tourism is also there. Kashmir can be a hub for heritage tourism. And the other resource and the other key is agriculture. But when we can see this, when there is a peace in Kashmir, now the India has passed a new law, that is a new domicile law. And India is also start hitting the right of education of Kashmiris. We Kashmiris can never accept this new law of domicile, and also the fresh state of terrorism that is conducted by the Indian troops in Kashmir is unbearable for the Kashmiris. Since Monday, 18 young martyred in Pulwama, and when I visit the UK, I was very surprised and happy to see all the efforts made by the MEPs, MPs, and our Kashmiri diaspora. And when we can never forget our hero Raja Najabat Saab, who is always there to highlight the Kashmir issue, who is always there to gather all the MPs, all the MLAs, our president. He want to raise the Kashmir issue always. I appreciate your effort, Raja Saab. May Allah bless you. I also want to highlight a very important thing. When the world is fighting against the pandemic, coronavirus, India is conducting its ways, or India is want to change the demography of the Kashmir. Since 3,000 days, Kashmiri people are in a complete lockdown in Indian occupied Kashmir. We are living in a lockdown situation since 3 months or 4 months, but in Indian occupied Kashmir, Kashmiri people are in a complete lockdown since 3,000 days. Now the India has started to build a new runway in occupied Kashmir. I want to say that Raja Sahab and all the MPs here, please highlight this, that India cannot change the demography of the Kashmir. India cannot snatch the self-right of determination of Kashmiri people. Kashmiris will fight for their freedom since the last drop of their blood. They cannot give their Kashmir, they cannot give the heaven on earth to the India. India can do its best. OIC has taken the steps, MEPs has written the letter, many human rights organizations are writing the letter, but the most important thing is that the people or the minorities within the India are not safe. The world must notice this human rights violation in India. Otherwise, this fire will spread across the world, and not even the Kashmiris will affected by this. All the world, the peace of whole world will affect by this.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sarish. Now, can I request Honorable President of Azad Kashmir, Sardar Mohammed to join us again, please.
Well, thank you so much. Raja Saab, can you hear me?
Ji.
Yes. Couple of points that I want to make. First, I want to thank everybody for their remarks. I'm overwhelmed by these remarks. They are so reassuring. And I had this feeling that we were all preaching to the choir, because there was a high degree of unanimity about our approach towards Kashmir and what we ought to be doing. So it was coming from across the spectrum. I mean, there were members of the parliament and they were saying the same thing. And the crux of the matter is that we have to somehow find a strategy to put an end to the human rights violations in the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and to accelerate our pace for the realization of the right to self-determination of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. Second, as some speakers have highlighted, the clouds of war are gathering around Ladakh, and this should not be taken lightly. And as I mentioned earlier, that this region is contiguous to the Jammu and Kashmir territory. So therefore, our attention should be focused on that. We have screen. Okay. Okay. I hope everybody can see me, because I'm seeing Raja Sahab. So basically, I'm talking to Raja Sahab on the screen. Raja Sahab, you are displayed on the screen. Now, the second thing that I want to say is that the United Kingdom, its parliamentarians, when they speak to the FCO or to the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, they should ask them to instruct their delegation in the Security Council to urge the United Nations Secretary General to appoint a special envoy, because you have to do horizon scanning about a conflict that can be perilous for peace and security in the world. And here is a case where you are not just doing horizon scanning, you're witnessing what is happening every day. And what is happening in the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir is threatening international peace and security. It has already disrupted regional peace and security. And the Security Council, as it was pointed out by some speakers, was that the Security Council met twice, but it did not deliver a product. This time, the Security Council should meet in an open chamber or behind the scenes, in informals or formal sessions, and should give us a blueprint for the resolution of the Jammu and Kashmir dispute. Then I would say that there were 2 points which were raised by Ms. Debbie Abrams. And she raised 2 points. One is that there were some observations which were made by the High Commissioner for Human Rights. And I can assure her that we are addressing those points which were raised, which were minor compared to the monstrosities in the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. I mean, the abominable human rights record that you see there in the occupied territory. So you can't have this artificial equivalence between Azad Jammu and Kashmir and the Indian occupied Kashmir. In fact, the High Commissioners have highlighted in the very first report, they said that the scale is different. The scale is completely different, but we are ready to engage with the High Commissioner for Human Rights, with the Human Rights Council. If there are representatives who want to come to Azad Kashmir, we will have a dialogue with them. Let me assure you, Ms. Abrams, that there's no instance of terror financing whatsoever. And instead of listening to the Indians or their propagandists or their spokespersons, listen to us. We're telling the truth. There's no terror financing. There is no terrorist activity going on in the Azad Jammu and Kashmir territory or Pakistan. We are cracking down on terrorist networks because they were a threat to our own existence. And we have delegitimized them. And that's why Kashmiris are fighting this war all by themselves. 230 boys, these errant boys, the militant boys, as the occupation authorities would like to call them, they are fighting these 900,000 troops. And they do not have weapons. They have blunt weapons, for God's sake. They do not have any training whatsoever. And they're gunned down every day. Their police chief, I can tell you this, Dilbagh Singh, he was saying that there were 250, and out of them we have killed about 83, or this was some time ago, probably 100 by now, and that we have arrested 100 more, and now a very small number is left to be tackled. The second thing is that you raised this issue of religious minorities. Let me tell you that we have only Christian minority, and we do not have other minorities. We do not have Hindus or Sikhs. But last time I invited the Christian community in Muzaffarabad, and we celebrated Christmas together. We take care of them. So, and yet I would say very categorically that we are not a paragon of perfection, for God's sake. We are a developing country, and there may be some failures, and we're trying to rectify them. We are really trying to create a humanitarian society. So, and as I said earlier, we're ready to engage anybody on this subject. As one of the participants said, that human rights are indivisible, and you can't have a partial and selective approach towards them. They are universal too. So we would continue to pursue promotion and protection of rights of all citizens of Azad Jammu and Kashmir. Let me also tell you that a suggestion that it can go from Ms. Debbie Abrams or other parliamentary leaders, that a cross-party delegation wants to visit Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. And I'm sure that because of COVID-19 and other restrictions and India's traditional reservations about such a delegation, they would say no. But at least it would generate some pressure on them, and maybe at one point, time would be ripe for such a visit. There was a very important point made by one of the speakers, and it was about engaging India. Let me tell you that Pakistan is ready to engage India. The people of Jammu and Kashmir are ready to engage India. India is absent. It is not an interlocutor. So we have a problem here. We want diplomacy. We want negotiating tables. We want peace tables, for God's sake. But there is no India there. There are no Indian representatives. They are not talking to Pakistan. They are not talking to the Kashmiri leaders. But somebody said that And it was Mr. Richard Corbett who rightly said that India is incurring exorbitant costs by imposing occupation on Kashmir. And it is not in the interest of India to do so, and we agree. And when we're talking about India, we're not talking about 1.3 billion people of India. We are talking about the Bharatiya Janata Party and Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh regime, these extremists, these zealots who are committing crimes against humanity, and they are pursuing genocide in Kashmir. So my appeal to you is that we can't have a formal dialogue, and because we are looked at with suspicion by Indian zealots, anybody who talks about human values in India is called a Pakistani agent. Muslims are asked to migrate to Pakistan, and the Hindus there, the liberal Hindus, if they say something about Kashmir or about the rights of the Muslims, they are also advised to go to Pakistan. So in these circumstances, it is not possible for us to start a dialogue with them or to elaborate some confidence building measures. What I'm trying to say is here that while we are handicapped, you are not, the parliamentarians in the United Kingdom or the diaspora community or the civil society. You can engage India, and you'd be engaging them not only on your behalf, but also on behalf of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. And let me pay tribute to many political parties, many Indian political parties, their leaders, and also civil society organizations and women's group who have spoken up for the Kashmiris, and still they continue to speak up for the Kashmiris. Many journalists, many intellectuals, opinion leaders are speaking up for the Kashmiris, and we are grateful to them. So what you can be the conduit, you can be the catalyst for that kind of a dialogue. Mr. Shafaq Mohammed had said that Kashmiri lives matter. We are living in an age where discrimination dominates. Some lives matter, others don't. But yes, his suggestion is correct that we should start this trend as well. I'll say a few things and then conclude, as a matter of fact. One is that what is the takeaway from this conclave today, the discussion that we've had? And I would say that repeatedly I heard that, and this in fact debunked India's myth that Kashmir is a bilateral issue. Speaker after speaker underlined that it's not a bilateral issue, that it's a trilateral issue, and that they emphasized that the Kashmiris have to determine their political future. And this has to be a democratic exercise. My last point is this, that peace and prosperity, yes, but let me tell you, when a house is on fire, you need fire extinguishers and fire brigades, for God's sake. And in Kashmir right now, when you're talking about peace and prosperity, you're off the mark, because in the occupied territory, what we need is peacemaking, what we need is peacekeeping, what we need is peace building, for God's sake. We need international intervention. We do not need palliatives. We do not need false narratives. It is an international intervention which is required. Let me come to the last part, which is Azad Jammu and Kashmir. Many European parliamentarians, Julie Ward was there, Antia McIntyre, and also Richard Corbett and others, they have visited Azad Kashmir. Azad Kashmir is a peaceful place. And let me tell you, it is a prosperous zone in Pakistan. I can assure you, I give you that testimony. We have a long way to go, but we are on the path towards prosperity. And we are focusing, as I have informed you many times, we are focusing on good governance, the rule of law, economic development. And in economic development, we are focusing on infrastructure, industry, agriculture, education, health, and many other sectors, floriculture, horticulture, and so on. We are confident. We have the highest literacy rate in the entire territory of Pakistan. And we have the lowest crime rate. It's a peaceful place. And I hope and pray that the people of Jammu and Kashmir, the other side, would also join us, and that we would be able to usher in an era of peace and prosperity in the region. As I said earlier, under no circumstances we want a war. We do not want confrontation. We have chosen the path of diplomacy and dialogue and engagement, and we will persevere in this path. And as one of the parliamentarians mentioned, it would be difficult for you to understand the predicament of the Kashmiris if you try to understand it through your head. That's why last time I made an appeal that try to feel the pain of the Kashmiris through your heart, because what is happening in Kashmir cannot be reduced to words. It's one of the most serious catastrophes, almost an apocalypse in one part of our planet. Thank you so much for listening to me. I have to go for another engagement. And thank you so much, Raja Saab. Raja Saab, let me give you this tribute. Let me repeat that tribute once again. I salute you, and I thank all the parliamentarians who have spoken from their heart. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President Saab. Can I request you before you leave? We have got Chairman, Conservative Friends of Kashmir, James Daly from very north, and Chairperson of All Parties Pakistan Parliamentary Group, Yasmin Qureshi, who is going to speak now. If you have got about 5 to 10 minutes, then it's okay. If not, we will. You can hear Yasmin's speech. Also, you mentioned Yasmin's points, which she has done in UK. Yasmin, please.
Yes, I'll listen to her.
Well, assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. It might be good evening where you are. But thank you very much, President, for giving your speech and the work that you've been doing. And I'm pleased to see that the Pakistan High Commission, Nafees, Zakria is here as well, and he's done a tremendous amount of work. I'm speaking here not just as the chair of the All Parties Parliamentary Group on Pakistan, but also as somebody who's sympathetic to the cause of Kashmir. And as you know, very recently, Debbie Abraham, who's the chair of the All Parties Parliamentary Group on Kashmir, and I went to the Parliament Backbench Business Committee before COVID-19 to ask for a debate on Kashmir in the main chamber. But with COVID-19 and the chamber closing down, that debate never took place. However, I know that Debbie and I are trying to get that debate, now that Parliament is sort of coming back in some kind of form, is to get that debate again sooner than later, so it's discussed fully in the chamber. We are trying, and I know I am and my other parliamentary colleagues are trying to persuade not just my party's front bench to adopt a position that Kashmir is an issue that the international community needs to deal with and address, and not just a bilateral issue, but also obviously persuade the government benches to do so as well, because they are in power at this moment in time. We know there are members of parliament in the Conservative Party who are very supportive of Kashmir. So one of the things we want to do is, and we're working towards, is ensuring that the front bench of all the political parties in the United Kingdom, be it Liberal Democrats, SNP, Labour, and the Conservative, to actually acknowledge that the issue of Kashmir is one of obviously human rights abuses, and that needs to be tackled immediately, and that the international community cannot remain silent on this issue. And then, of course, we've got the second question, which is about the legal and the constitutional status of Kashmir and its eventual determination. But again, that has now become very urgent in light of the fact that the laws passed by the Indian government in the last year or so, which, when involved, or which already started to be put in place, would change the whole demographics, the whole administrative setup of Kashmir. And that, of course, is deliberate. It's deliberately being done by the this particular Hindu avatar right-wing Modi government, which is being advised, and I've said this publicly before, and I have no problem saying it again, that they are following exactly what Israel has done in Palestine. It's the same kind of thing happening, so that you change the situation so bad, so change that you can't bring self-determination. And again, that is something that we need to persuade the international community to come onto board. Then, of course, the human rights abuses that are taking place. It cannot be right that you can have one army person, military person for 9 civilians. And the lockdown that's been taking place, the human rights violation. I think, again, all of us parliamentarians, certainly in the United Kingdom Parliament, need to come together. And now that we have some semblance of parliament coming up again, I can assure you from my side, and I know my other colleagues, that we will start raising this question, try to get an urgent question, start asking our Prime Minister, our Foreign Secretary to actually, start talking about the issue. We've spoken recently about what happened in Hong Kong. Well, we also have a historical duty towards this issue of Kashmir as well, that we need to take on board, and we need to get other governments engaged across the world, because without everyone, international community getting involved in, so in the legal issue, status of Kashmir is not going to get resolved that quickly, but more immediate issues of human rights abuses and violation, which, cannot be accepted, cannot be condoned, and that we will have to speak on it. Some of us are already speaking on it, but we need to speak more and more and get our governments to engage on it as well. Thank you for listening, and thank you, President Azad Kashmir, for all the hard work that you've been doing over so many years, and for your speech as well.
Thank you very much. Can I now request James Daly, Member of Parliament from Bury North, Chairman, Conservative Friends of Kashmir. We have invited all the chairmen today. James,
hello.
Please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, because I can't see myself on screen, so I do apologise. Mr. President, I hope you're still here. It doesn't seem 2 minutes since I visited you in Muzaffarabad in February. I agree with a lot of what the previous speaker has said, and I see friends on this call now as people are coming back into shot. So, Mr. President, it's always an honour to hear from you, sir. It's always an honour to listen to your views on the appalling situation that we have in Kashmir at this moment in time. You have friends within the Conservative Party. We believe that this is a matter, I believe this is a matter that can only be tackled through the United Nations. We need to stand up for human rights. We need to make sure throughout the House of Commons that this is at the top of the agenda in terms of foreign affairs. And you will always have a friend in myself, my Conservative colleagues, who wish to support you and your colleagues in the incredible work that you are doing. So I know you have to go to a new meeting, so I won't keep you any further than that. But any assistance, any help that we can give as backbench MPs, we will be there for you, sir. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Hello. Can I now request Abdul Lawn, Hurriyat Conference leader, to say a few words. Hamid Lawn Sahab, please. Lawn Sahab, aane? No. Abdul Hamid Lawn Sahab, please. ऑन करें ना लॉन साहब, आप नहीं हो रहे. That's good. Please. आवाज नहीं आ रही.
Maybe headphones ना निकालने.
आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही लॉन साहब, हेडफोन निकाल दें.
जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम राय साहब।
ठीक है, आप बस ठीक है, बिस्मिल्लाह करें और जल्दी करें।
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, Raj Sahab, thank you very much for inviting me. There should be no doubt that India is now run by total fascist force. The Hindutva philosophy is a racial supremacist theory which makes discrimination amongst human beings. Muslims are considered as subhuman. Hindutva forces plan to annihilate Muslims in India and Indian occupied Kashmir. Jammu and Kashmir has a distinct identity with the glorious Muslim civilization. It is a stated objective of the BJP that it will finish this identity and revive a Hindu civilization in Indian occupied Kashmir. That has been the thinking behind the revocation of Article 370 and 35A of Indian Constitution. India planned to change the demography of Kashmir and convert Muslim majority into a minority. There are various United Nations resolutions describing Jammu and Kashmir as disputed territory. India must be stopped to change the states of the territory. There is every danger of genocide in Indian occupied Kashmir, and the world must not become indifferent to it. Where the world is fighting with COVID-19 pandemic, India is engaged in atrocities on Kashmir. Occupied Kashmir has been cut off from the world due to suspension of internet service. The world body should take a notice. Thank you very much. Thank you again.
Thank you for that. And we have our next speaker is, hang on, let me just, sorry. Faisal Javed Saab, if he's on.
Senator Faisal Javed.
Senator Faisal Javed.
No?
No?
Yeah,
Okay, I think we will, I'll welcome Pakistani High Commissioner Nafees Zakria Saab.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum to everyone and good afternoon. Thank you very much for all the views that have been expressed, and I can say with confidence that all the views were converging, all the views were unanimous in realizing the human rights situation which is very grave in the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. I just want to inform you, because all aspects have been touched upon except for a few which I'll touch upon. First thing is that for the last many months, I am constantly writing to the FCO, the government, British government, as also to most of the parliamentarians about the development which are taking place in Indian occupied Kashmir, with particular reference to the thing that we have talked about since 5th of August, the illegal measures which India has undertaken to change the situation in ground, to change the status of Kashmir dispute. Now, Kashmir dispute, everybody has rightly said that it's an internationally recognized dispute. It is pending on the UN Security Council's agenda. And like all of us, all of you, Government of Pakistan's position is also same, that we want to resolve this issue amicably in accordance with the UN Security Council resolutions through a plebiscite to be supervised by the UN, to ascertain the Kashmiris' destiny, the Kashmiris' choice for future. I also want to invite your attention to a few things. One is that we back and forth have been referencing to the COVID-19 and the situation that has been aggravated for Kashmiris there. India has been using it to further aggravate situation over there for Kashmiris to suffer from. But as a matter of fact, this plight of Kashmiris is going on for 70 years now. And in this, what Kashmiris have actually seen is the genocide of 1947, which they observe on every 6th of November every year. More than 1 million people were removed from there to bring about the demographic change at that point in time, and more than 300,000 people were eliminated from the surface of earth, all Kashmiris from Jammu alone. So that also again changed the situation on ground. The demographic change was brought about right in 1947. Our concern right now, as has been shared by most of the speakers here, is the, am I audible to everyone? I just want to, okay. It is the change which India is bringing, the demographic change which India is bringing right now in Indian occupied Kashmir. Through the Reorganization Act, through the domicile procedure which it has implemented, to altogether change the situation on ground, so that whenever this plebiscite, if at all, takes place, it would not really impact India as much. Now, we have been talking about the atrocities, but let me also invite your attention to the documented accounts of atrocities that have been committed by Indian forces. They have committed genocide, they have committed crimes against humanity, and all these things are manifested or very well documented in the documents like the Amnesty International report on mass blinding, which is called Losing Sight in Kashmir. Then another report in which the mass graves were discovered, and this account has been documented by International People's Tribunal, along with the cooperation from the Association of Parents of Disappeared Persons. Now, India has been trying its best since 1989 to actually portray the indigenous self-determination movement of Kashmiris in Indian occupied Kashmir as an act of terrorism. India has failed so far, and India will never succeed in this, because all of you and all of us realize, the world realizes that what Kashmiris are doing is part of the self-determination movement, and that has nothing to do with terrorism. But Indian propaganda has been going on. Now, we are talking about a country that calls itself the largest democracy on earth. And I have in front of me the report of December 2019 compiled by EU Disinfo Lab. And that says everything as to how India runs false propaganda to malign Pakistan, to malign Kashmiri movement, and also to malign the Muslims by and large. So I think we need to keep this in mind. Now, India calls itself as the largest democracy, and India also aspires to become a permanent member of the UN Security Council. India also wants to portray itself and throw its weight around as the major power. But look at India, what it is doing in terms of violation. It has violated, by bringing about the demographic change in Indian occupied Kashmir, it has brought about the permanent change, which is not allowed under the UN Security Council resolutions. It is also actually liable to be called to account under the Act of Genocide, this Convention on Genocide. It is also liable to be called to account on every human rights convention that India has actually violated. So India is in violation of all the human rights convention. India is in violation of UN Charter. India is in violation of the Convention on Human Rights and many other conventions which are directly relevant or indirectly relevant to the human rights. Now, I want to ask all of you that everybody has talked about issuing statements. Everybody has talked about urging India not to do that and respect the human rights. But this is going on for quite some time. Is India listening to anybody? India is not listening to anybody. India doesn't want to engage anyone for that matter. And I think some of these speakers were very right to say that we have to resort to some concrete measures in which you don't really need the permission of the perpetrators to ask him that whether you can go there and check the situation on the ground. You don't have to check the situation on the ground, because situation on the ground, you can draw a parallel, you can see the what could be the situation on ground when they have denied access to every media and everybody for to see what is the situation on ground. Because you have before you all the documented accounts, as I mentioned about the mass graves, as I mentioned about the mass blinding, as somebody also mentioned about, or I think missed out telling about the mass rapes, Quran Poshwara. Let's not forget those ladies who are still waiting for justice to be delivered. Now the Kashmiris do need your support. Kashmiris do need some mobilization of effort and the voice to call India to account. But Kashmiris are also waiting for delivery of justice, because the injustices that have been done to them in the past, can you let go of it? We cannot. Now, mass graves, for example, India has been propagating, India has been running a propaganda that they had been cross LOC infiltration from the other side of LOC. And when these mass graves were discovered, and this is going on since 1989, that India is trying to portray and project that, oh, Pakistan is involved in act of terrorism, Pakistan is sending these things, infiltrators and things like that. But we have asked them time and again, they have never provided us any evidence, they have never engaged us on this count. Secondly, when this discovery of mass graves happened, when the randomly the people, the neutral people dug up exhumed the bodies from those mass graves, each and every body randomly that was checked, and the facial recognition, the physical recognition was carried out, or the DNA test was carried out, it was proven that everybody was an indigenous Kashmiri, and everyone that actually they found in those mass graves were basically those missing persons for whom their parents had actually formed an association. And I think this all exposed India's lies about infiltration. It exposed India's lies about the boogie of terrorism. What it also exposed India on account of in the context of fake encounters. So India is liable to be called to account on account of fake encounters, because all those Kashmiris, they were killed telling the world as they were the terrorists, they were the infiltrators, whereas they were not. Let me just in the end mention the incident of Machal. If anybody remembers that, 2010. The three Indian occupied Kashmiris, they young boys of the age of 17, 18, 19 years, they were asked by the British soldiers that they should go touch the LOC and come back, and they will get, anybody who wins the race will get the job. And on the way back, they were all killed. And this was witnessed by some journalists. And people, their parents were looking for these bodies. And on the identification of that journalist, they found these three bodies. But in the process of, before they could find these three bodies, there were protests. And in those protests, many people were killed. So I'm telling you what you are facing, you are confronting, or you are confronted with a country, with a force that had been telling lies about everything, that had been in violation of the UN Charter, that had been in violation of the International Convention. And I think that had been indulging in the propaganda, false information, spreading false information. So I think when you talk about Kashmir issue, to resolve it, when you talk about finding the situation on ground and collecting facts on ground, you have to keep all these points in mind. And I think the best way right now is to bring pressure, immense pressure on India. As Julie very rightly pointed out, that as the EU has adopted and linked any trade talk to the human rights situation, I think all the countries should adopt this procedure, because you cannot compare the situation, what's happening in Indian occupied Kashmir, with any conflict zone in any part of the world, because the kind of atrocities they have perpetrated, that is unprecedented, that is unmatched, unparalleled. And I think for this, you really don't need to wait for the facts, you don't really need to wait for the evidence. The evidence and everything has been documented, and that has not been documented by Pakistan. That has not been documented by any Pakistani. That has been documented by the international organizations, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, the OSCHR office, the APPKG on Kashmir, everybody for that matter, IPTK, and I think there's numerous reports. And I have not talked about the media side. Media has also, reported numerously in many of their reports that as to what is happening in Indian occupied Kashmir. The print press, the print media has been very candid in this regard, although the electronic media has not been given any access. And I'm surprised that the electronic media, and I cite this thing to the journalists also, that once the electronic media has not been given the access, why they have not made any hue and cry on that also, that they have been denied access. So I think right now there is an emergency, and the emergency is that the international community must intervene without any further delay. They must stop the bloodshed. The fact-finding mission must be formed and should be dispatched to Indian occupied Kashmir to see the situation on the ground. There's no time to wait for India's permission to visit. That is a disputed territory. That is a responsibility of the entire international community. And everything is very much clear to everyone that what kind of atrocities are happening over there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, His Excellency High Commissioner of Pakistan, for your support, encouragement, and cooperation and your comments. Now, I would like to request, although it was a final speech, but we have got our Youth Parliament's President from Azad Pakistan, who happens to be Kashmiri, Ubaidur Rahman Kashmiri, and he has a lot of contribution, and also and they organized a conference in the past few weeks back, and now also they are organizing another youth conference with the parliamentarians with the support of Debbie Abrams and others on 18th of June. Can I request Ubaid Qureshi to say a few words, please?
Thank you, sir. Firstly, being a Kashmiri origin, Pakistani youth activist, and first elected president of Youth Parliament of Pakistan, I am thankful to all of you for your kind contribution, support, and raising the voice for the people of Kashmir. And no doubt you people are our asset who raise the voice, because nobody have access to visit the Kashmir and see the ground facts, what's going on there. My understanding about the Modi government policy after the 5 August, and listening your speeches, listening the conferences, many other conferences, seminars, and reading the reports, media reports especially, Modi have special agenda of deployment of Kashmiri troops in the Indian occupied Kashmir. That is, he don't want Kashmiris in the future. He want to create the space between the generation, which is clearly indicated from his 2 steps. Firstly, as President Sardar Masood Ahmed Khan also detailed give overview about the domicile aspect and the constitutional amendment which gave the authority to the extremists of India to get settled in the Kashmir, and which is alarming situation to highlight, to disintegrate the identity of the Kashmiri people. Recently, a few days back, either 1 or 2, the 13 youth activists martyred in the Kashmir, and also British High Commissioner Honorable Nafees Zakria also explained, shared a quote an incident in which the youth moved towards the line of control for the sake of job in the form of race. Basically, the media report stated that the 2 troops identified the Kashmiri youth, they tortured them, they killed them, brutality. And even yesterday, President APPKG also tweeted a sad narration of 3 people who escaped from the police custody in 2008. Troops identified them and killed them with brutality by passing our jeep. Today we are in 21st century age of modern civilization and expression of the freedom, but still world has no-go area which is created by the Modi government in Indian occupied Kashmir. either the people from divided territory, Pakistan, Kashmir, or from the international, either the member of parliament, media professional, any activist can't move freely inside the Kashmir, which is a very alarming. I am the youth activist and I understand the role of youth. Youth play a vibrant role to create, to support the public perception and the government, to strengthen the government policy. And I think after the August incident of Modi government, we need to do more work to expose the Modi policy and get the international community attention. Our Kashmiri brothers, sisters looking for the support of international community to get the implementation of the United Nations resolution. And thanks to once again to Raja Najabat Saab and all his team for kind contribution in the Kashmir issue in current pandemic situation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Javed. Can I welcome Senator Faisal Javed and request him to say a few words. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. You always supported us on the Kashmir cause, so can you say a few words, please?
Thank you, Ji. Can you hear me?
Yes. Not see you.
Thank you, Bismillah. Thank you very much, Raja Saab, for inviting me. And welcome to all the participants. Assalamu alaikum. Lots of prayers for everyone. The entire world is going through a very tough situation because of this coronavirus. So prayers for you all. Stay safe and wish you all the best. And at the same time, I salute all of you for your great efforts in terms of raising the voice. You guys have always been raising the voice for the Kashmiris. And this really is the time when the concentration of entire world is on the other side, but we cannot neglect raising Kashmir issue at the moment. Particularly, this is the time when we really need to go further steps ahead in terms of creating awareness on what exactly is happening in Kashmir and making the world realize what Kashmiris are going through. So the effort of all parties Kashmir conference by Jammu and Kashmir Self-Determination Movement International, Raja Najabat Hussain Chairman, thank you very much. As Prime Minister Imran Khan has been very clear in terms of raising the Kashmir issue, and you remember a great piece of article that he wrote in the New York Times as well, where he addressed the entire international community. And the title of that article was that the world cannot ignore Kashmir. So we are all in danger, everyone. If the world does nothing to stop the Indian assault on Kashmir and on its people, then the two nuclear armed states will get ever closer to a direct military confrontation. So after Imran Khan was elected as Prime Minister of Pakistan in August 2018, one of his foremost priorities was to work for lasting and just peace in South Asia. Imran Khan wanted to normalize relations with India through trade and by settling the Kashmir dispute, the foremost important, and normalization of relations between the two countries. He made all his efforts, and his first address on television, it was July 2018, before taking the oath of the Prime Minister after the elections. It was the very next day when he spoke to the people, and he wanted peace with India, and if it took one step forward, he said we would take two steps. So after that, there was a meeting between two foreign ministers of Pakistan and India. It was arranged on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly session in September 2018. But India cancelled that meeting. And what happened on the August 5th, it is in front of everyone that what Modi's government altered the status of Indian occupied Kashmir through revocation of Article 370 and 35A of the Indian Constitution. That move was illegal, and Imran Khan raised his voice. The entire Pakistani community, Kashmiri community, and the entire world has been raising voice. It is a clear violation of the United Nations Security Council resolutions on Kashmir and the Shimla Agreement between Pakistan and India. So more recently, what has happened in India, as you are aware, that our Foreign Office raised a clear voice that the international community should take immediate steps to stop India from committing serious crimes against the Kashmiri people. And India should be held accountable under international law and relevant human rights conventions. This came out as a reaction to the killing of 13 innocent Kashmiris just a couple of days back. And Pakistan is deeply concerned that the extrajudicial killings of Kashmiri youth is taking place in India, by India. And now the time has come that this Hindutva ideology, the RSS ideology, the first time Prime Minister Imran Khan mentioned, the entire world is now saying the same, that the Modi government is following it. And it's, hello? Hello?
बिल्कुल आ रही है जी, आवाज आपकी आ रही है. हेलो
जी,
बिल्कुल आवाज आ रही है आपकी, सुन रहे हैं आप.
Yeah, so I was talking about the ideology of Modi's government, what it is doing to the people. And it is also becoming a threat to India's neighbors, Bangladesh as well, and border disputes with Nepal and China. And of course,
हेलो आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही.
after for Geneva
आवाज नहीं आ रही आपकी.
Convention, laying claim to APPKG. Imran Khan has always maintained the fascist Modi's government is not only a threat to India's minorities by relegating them to second-class citizen status, but also it's a huge threat to regional peace. Pakistan's position has always been very clear on this. अब थोड़ी सी बात उर्दू में भी करूँगा कि हमारे कश्मीरियों के साथ इस वक्त आवाज़ मिलाना बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है. पूरी दुनिया एक मुश्किल वक्त से गुजर रही है और इस बीच हम कश्मीरियों को नहीं भूल सकते, क्योंकि जो वहाँ पे हो रहा है और जो रिसेंटली कश्मीर में हुआ है, किस तरह से एक भारत ने एक ही दिन में 13 लोगों को शहीद किया, जुल्म एक किया जा रहा है. तो यहाँ पे इंटरनेशनल कम्युनिटी किसी सूरत सो नहीं सकती है, किसी सूरत ओझल नहीं कर सकती है कश्मीरियों को अपनी नजरों से, अपने ध्यान से. तो बहुत ज्यादा जरूरत थी इस کنونشن کی بھی جو آپ نے منعقد کی انٹرنیشنل فورم پہ اور آواز اٹھائی راجہ صاحب, اور اس فورم کے تحت پوری دنیا کو جاگنا چاہیے. جیسا کہ ابھی امبیسڈر صاحب نفیس زکریہ صاحب کہہ رہے تھے کہ اس قدر ظلم کی انتہا ہے کہ آؤٹ لیٹس بند کی ہوئی ہیں, میڈیا کو ایکسیس نہیں دے رہے ہیں کہ اصل رپورٹ وہ کر سکیں اور دکھا سکیں کہ کیا اس وقت بیت رہی ہے کشمیریوں کے اوپر. یہ بہت زیادہ ضروری ہے کہ ہم سب آواز اٹھائیں, ایکسیس دلوائیں, انٹرنیشنل میڈیا کو پورا زور لگائیں اور ایکسیس دلوائیں کہ وہاں سے جو لوگوں کے حالات ہیں وہ ٹھیک رپورٹ ہوں. یہاں پہ ورلڈ ہیلتھ آرگنائزیشن کو بھی سامنے آنا ہوگا, ہیومن رائٹس آرگنائزیشن کے ساتھ ساتھ جس وقت کرونا کے حوالے سے جو چیزیں ہیں وہاں پہ کشمیریوں کے پاس کوئی سہولت نہیں ہے. وہاں پہ جو ہندوستان ان کے ساتھ کر رہا ہے اس وبا کے بعد وہاں پہ زیادہ پریشانی ہے. تو ہم سب سٹے ہوم اور ساری چیزیں کر سکتے ہیں, لیکن وہاں پر ان کے پاس کوئی فیسلٹی نہیں ہے, کچھ بھی نہیں ہے, صرف مظالم ہو رہے ہیں. وہاں پہ ابھی بھی لوگوں کو مارا جا رہا ہے, کوئی ان کے لیے آواز اٹھانے والا نہیں ہے, کوئی ان کی بات کرنے والا نہیں ہے. تو یہ ساری چیزیں رپورٹ نہیں ہو رہی ہیں. تو WHO کو بھی چاہیے, HO کو بھی چاہیے کہ وہاں پہ بھی انسان بستے ہیں کہ ان حالات میں جہاں پہ بھارتی فوج ان پہ قابض ہے, ان پہ مظالم کر رہی ہے, ان کو ہاسپٹل جانے کا کوئی فیسلٹی حاصل نہیں ہے, کسی قسم کی میڈیکل ایڈ ان کے پاس نہیں ہے. ان حالات میں کس طرح ہو سکتا ہے کہ باقی دنیا جو ہے وہ اس سے اپنی آنکھیں چھپائے اور اس پہ بات نہ کرے, اور جو WHO کے لوگ ہیں وہ اس پہ نظر ثانی نہ کریں, ان کے لیے آواز نہ اٹھائیں. جہاں پہ ہیومن رائٹس آرگنائزیشنز اٹھاتی ہیں وہیں پہ بھی ہر ملک کی بات ہو رہی ہے, ہر ملک کے ڈیٹا آ رہا ہے. کشمیر کا ڈیٹا تو کہیں نہیں آ رہا. کشمیر میں تو نہیں پتہ نمبر کیا ہے کرونا وائرس کے, کتنے لوگ جو ہیں افیکٹڈ ہیں, کتنے لوگوں کے برے حالات ہیں, کتنے لوگ جو ہیں وہ کس طرح سے زندگی وہاں گزار رہے ہیں. کیونکہ وہاں پہ تو کوئی ایکسیس ہی نہیں ہے, کسی بھی آرگنائزیشن کو وہاں ایکسیس نہیں ہے. وہاں پہ صرف بھارتی جو فوج ہے وہ قابض ہے. تو اس چیز کو ہمیں یقینی طور پہ دیکھنا ہوگا اور آواز اٹھانی ہوگی. اور مقبوضہ کشمیر پر جو غیر قانونی جو قبضہ جمانے ہیں اور جو کہ چوتھے جنیوا کنونشن کے تحت ایک جنگی جرم ہے آزاد کشمیر پر دعویٰ کے بعد, یہ سب جیسے عمران خان ہمیشہ سے کہتے آئے ہیں کہ صفاق مودی سرکار جو ہے, بھارتی اقلیتیں جنہوں نے اس کمتر شہریوں کو انہوں نے درجہ دے رکھا ہے, بہت ہی خطرناک ہے. صرف ان کے لیے نہیں بلکہ پورے علاقائی امن کو بھی اس سے نہایت ہی زیادہ جو ہے خطرہ درپیش ہے. باقیوں نے بھی بات کرنی ہوگی. I think others will also would want to talk. So in the end, once again, I was trying to stress upon the need for raising voice for the Kashmiris at this particular time, and would also urge the entire international community that you see whatever Prime Minister Imran Khan has been saying from the day one is now the entire world is saying the same. So this really is the time when we all need to act as human beings. We need to feel for others. We need to feel for Kashmiris. They are human beings. We cannot be human if we cannot feel for others. So we do a lot of talks, we write a lot of articles in the papers, but practically we need to do something for our Kashmiri brothers and sisters. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator Saab. Thank you very much. آپ کا بہت بہت شکریہ. آپ نے ہمیشہ ہمارے کانفرنسز وغیرہ میں شرکت کر کے سپورٹ کیا, یورپین پارلیمنٹ میں بھی, پاکستان میں بھی, اور آج بھی. We have got representation from Jammu, Narendra Singh Khalsa. Yes, he is connected. Yeah. And Narendra Singh ji, sorry, آپ کو ڈیلے ہو گیا. You can speak now.
ہلو
جی,
ہلو, السلام علیکم جی جاوید صاحب, السلام علیکم, ست سری اکال.
ست سری اکال جی.
In fact, میں just on turban remove کی ہے. Just I have removed my turban and I was continuously waiting, but I couldn't connect. Anyhow, let's talk.
تھوڑا سا اوپر کریں گے, چہرہ کب آئے گا.
ہاں جی, I must talk in English or Urdu. I should. Hello.
جی جی, English will be better.
English. First of all, I congratulate the organizers of this event, particularly Janab Najabul Sahab, who has initiated this conference, particularly in the event of this pandemic. And I'm thankful to all the organizers that we are discussing the way forward, the peace and prosperity in Kashmir. And I am of the view that the peace in Kashmir, there is no peace at present in Kashmir. And the peace is not possible until the Kashmir problem is resolved as per the UN resolutions as promised by the government of India, the first Prime Minister of India. But at present, there is no peace in Kashmir. And the world is watching that what's happening in Kashmir. All the democratic values have been stolen. Our leaders have been jailed. Our youths have been jailed. There are black laws. There is lot of military in Indian occupied Kashmir. So I feel that the peace is not possible until the India resolves for the negotiations for the resolution of the Kashmir conflict. So it's my appeal to entire world community, particularly the United Nations and the British parliamentarians. They have a big role. They must raise our voice, what's happening in Kashmir, particularly the human rights violations which are happening in Kashmir. And the world is seeing that how our houses are being blasted, our childs are being blinded by pellet guns. So it's my humble appeal that they must raise our voice in world forums, and so that we get justice and the Kashmir issue is resolved. Then and then only peace can be restored.
Thank you very much. Next time we will inshallah get you in time and have a full briefing about what's happening in Jammu region and Ladakh. So thank you very much. Now I would like to request my sister and chairperson of the Jammu Kashmir Self-Determination Movement UK, Yasmin Dar, Councillor Yasmin Dar, to conclude. Asiya Khan, if you want, Asiya Hussain, if you want to say something. Asiya Hussain, our chairperson for Midland region. Do you want to speak?
Yes, I'm trying to.
अब आवाज नहीं आ रही आपकी.
Yes.
Hello.
Can you hear me now?
अब आ रही है?
Can you hear me
Yes,
now?
yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think it's gone again. Yeah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and very good afternoon, which is very late one. First of all, I would like to say thank you to Raja Najabul Sahab in his very crucial time when his mother died not long ago on 29th of May, and which he still was able to organize this very successful conference. Congratulations for that. And what I was hearing, all the valuable comments and speeches from everyone. Thank you for Pakistan High Commissioner and President AJK and our Governor Sahab from Punjab, and also Faisal, Javed from Pakistan. Thank you very much, and I would like to give rest of the time to my lovely lady, to Yasmin Dar and Usman Rasool and Zishan Arif. Inshallah, I will get a chance in the future time to speak over the Kashmir issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So I'm leaving up to Yasmin now. She's controlling, and thank you very much, Usman, joining. Now it's everything leaving up to Yasmin.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace and blessings to you all. Absolutely wonderful afternoon listening to everyone, all our honourable guests and speakers that have participated. You've absolutely been amazing. You are the leaders, you are the champions, you are the voice of Kashmir, and you are the ones that are going to make Kashmir be free in our lifetime. It is really important that we value each and every one of us that participates and gives their time. This is your your duty on humanity, which you have given, you've learned, you've shared your knowledge and information, and each and every one of you has that duty and responsibility to take your voices to every other platform that you are involved with. We need to make sure the world is awoken to what is going on. Any form of peace or anywhere that justice takes place needs the involvement of the international community. Nobody can say it's a bilateral issue. Nobody can say it's between India and Pakistan, or even China. This is something that the international community has to lead on. No dispute or no wars in any country are resolved without the international community. I'll mention, as the UK government, Northern Ireland was not resolved without the international community being involved. The apartheid in Africa didn't end. The Holocaust did not end without the international communities coming forward and making it end. So, brothers and sisters, each and every one of you is that leader, is that champion, is the one that's going to take this forward. Let us get onto this path of peace and justice for the people of Kashmir, and let it happen in our lifetime. Let the Kashmiris have the right to self-determination in our lifetime, not in another 70 years' time. Let us make sure now, let us start the petitions, the dialogue with everyone, whatever avenue we can go down, because you know it's a time for action. The time for dialogue really and truly needs to end. It's time for action. And each and every one of us needs to do that lobbying, and everyone spoke so eloquently. It was just amazing. We're all on the same journey. We all know what the answers are. We all know what's meant to happen. So if again, once again, I thank you, I applaud you, and I value your commitment and your time today. And let's work together and let's move forward, and let's now demand action. Kashmiri lives matter more than anything. Thank you. I think it's time to probably formally close the meeting. Raja Najabat, do you want to say any final words?
You have said that.
Okay. Wishing you all a peaceful night, a peaceful journey, wherever you're going to, whether it's to the kitchen to have something to eat, or just a good rest. But thank you so much, and a pleasure to have shared this afternoon with you all. Thank you. Everyone.